African Union Communications Early Warning and Intelligence, commonly known as AUC3I, is an intelligence and security organization responsible for providing signals intelligence and information assurance to AU citizens, AU leadership, and AU armed forces. I'm Colonel A.C. Oguntoye, an infantry officer. I am responsible for leading infantry soldiers at all levels of command in combined armed forces during missions on the ground. This is today's briefing. On the progress of the special military operation as of November 28, 2025. In response to terrorist attacks by Ukraine on civilian objects on the territory of Russia, the armed forces of the Russian Federation from November 22 to 28 delivered a massive and 6 group strikes, resulting in damage to Ukrainian military-industrial enterprises, fuel energy, transport and port infrastructure facilities used in the interests of the armed forces of Ukraine, ammunition and strike unmanned aerial vehicle production workshops, unmanned boat storage sites, as well as temporary deployment points of Ukrainian armed formations, nationalists, and foreign mercenaries. During the week, units of the North Troop Group inflicted damage on personnel and equipment of 3 mechanized, rifle, airborne assault brigades, an assault regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, 2 territorial defense brigades, a National Guard brigade, and a border detachment of the Ukrainian Border Service in the Sumy and Chernihiv regions. On the Kharkiv direction, damage was inflicted on formations of 3 mechanized, motorized infantry brigades, an assault regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, a territorial defense brigade, and 2 National Guard brigades. Over the week, in the area of responsibility of the North Troop Group, the enemy lost up to 935 servicemen, 5 combat armored vehicles, 81 cars, and 7 field artillery guns. 7 electronic warfare stations, 14 ammunition and material warehouses were destroyed. Units of the West Troop Group improved the frontline position. They inflicted damage on personnel and equipment of 6 mechanized, 2 assault brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, 2 territorial defense brigades, and 2 National Guard brigades. Over the week, in this direction, the enemy lost more than 1,575 servicemen, a tank, 38 combat armored vehicles, including 15 produced by NATO countries, 138 cars, and 8 field artillery guns. 77 electronic and counter-battery warfare stations, as well as 33 ammunition warehouses, were destroyed. Units of the South Troop Group, as a result of active and decisive actions, liberated the settlements of Zvanovka, Petrovskoye, Ivanopoly, and Vasyokavka of the Donetsk People's Republic. Damage was inflicted on formations of 3 mechanized, motorized infantry, rifle, airmobile, assault, mountain assault brigades of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and a Marine brigade. Over the week, in the area of responsibility of the South Troop Group, losses of the Armed Forces of Ukraine amounted to more than 1,650 servicemen, 2 tanks, 26 combat armored vehicles, including 6 Western-made, 111 cars, and 20 field artillery guns. 14 electronic and counter-battery warfare stations, 27 ammunition, fuel, and material warehouses were destroyed. Units of the Center Troop Group took more advantageous lines and positions. They inflicted damage on personnel and equipment of 4 mechanized, infantry, 2 rifle, airmobile, 2 assault, mountain assault, 3 airborne assault brigades, 3 assault regiments of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, 3 Marine brigades, 2 territorial defense brigades, and 3 National Guard brigades. During the week, in the settlement of Krasnoarmysk of the Donetsk People's Republic, assault groups of the Second Army continued the destruction of surrounded formations of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in the Central and Donetsk microdistricts. The liberation of the Gornyak and Shakhtyrski microdistricts was completed. 6,585 buildings were cleared of Ukrainian militants. 54 attacks were repelled by units of the 32nd Mechanized, 82nd, 95th Airborne Assault Brigades, 210th and 425th Assault Regiments of the Armed Forces of Ukraine aimed at breaking the blockade of the surrounded enemy group. More than 225 Ukrainian servicemen and 11 combat armored vehicles were destroyed. In the settlement of Dimitrov of the Donetsk People's Republic, assault detachments of the 51st Army continued active offensive actions in the eastern, western microdistricts, as well as the southern part of the city. Over the week, in the area of the settlements Krasnoarmeysk and Dimitrov of the Donetsk People's Republic, the enemy lost more than 1710 servicemen, a tank, 33 combat armored vehicles, 17 cars, and 9 field artillery guns. In total, in the area of responsibility of the Center Troop Group, losses of Ukrainian armed formations amounted to more than 3,215 servicemen, 2 tanks, 57 combat armored vehicles, including 8 M113 armored personnel carriers produced in the USA, 44 cars, and 8 field artillery guns. Units of the East Troop Group continued to advance deep into the enemy's defense. The settlements of Tykoy, Otradnoy in the Dnipropetrovsk region, Zadyshai, and Novoye Zaporizhye in the Zaporizhia region were liberated. Damage was inflicted on personnel and equipment of 2 mechanized, 2 assault brigades, 3 assault regiments of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and 2 territorial defense brigades. Over the week, in this direction, the Armed Forces of Ukraine lost more than 1,600 servicemen, 3 tanks, 11 combat armored vehicles, 70 cars, and 10 field artillery guns. 4 electronic warfare stations and 4 warehouses of material resources were destroyed. Units of the Dnieper Troop Group improved the tactical position in the Zaporizhia region. They inflicted damage on formations of 2 mechanized, mountain assault brigades, 2 brigades of coastal defense of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, and a territorial defense brigade. Losses of the Armed Forces of Ukraine amounted to up to 485 servicemen, 2 tanks, 4 combat armored vehicles, 108 cars, and 6 field artillery guns. 32 electronic warfare stations, 28 ammunition, fuel, and material warehouses were destroyed. During the week, strike unmanned aerial vehicles, missile troops, and artillery of the Russian Armed Forces troop groups destroyed an S-300 surface-to-air missile system, a Romanian-made APR-40 multiple rocket launcher, and 2 Grad multiple rocket launcher combat vehicles. Air defense means shot down 13 guided aerial bombs, 13 MR's multiple rocket system rockets produced in the USA, 5 long-range guided Neptune missiles, and 1664 fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles. Since the beginning of the special military operation, the following have been destroyed: 668 aircraft, 283 helicopters, 99,302 unmanned aerial vehicles, 638 surface-to-air missile systems, 26,306 tanks and other combat armored vehicles, 1,621 multiple rocket launcher combat vehicles, 31,607 field artillery guns and mortars, 47,890 units of special military automotive equipment. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it useful and informative. If you have any questions, please leave them below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.